Some of you, I've had the schus, I've had the merit meeting in the past. For those who don't know who I am, you'll get to know me very, very fast. My name is Heshi Forster. I'm very, very proud to be here, and I thank you for inviting me. I am not the replacement for Rabbi Mintz. In case you were thinking I'm taking his place, nobody can take Rabbi Mintz's place. Rabbi Biederman, Rabbi Davidowitz, perhaps, can get much closer than I can. But we're all celebrating the wedding tonight, each in our own way, in our hearts. Even if we're not there physically, Rabbi Mintz is at his grandson's wedding tonight. So we're all there in spirit. So Baruch Hashem, we wish him Mazel Tov, and for the family, a very special Mazel Tov on this beautiful occasion. Thank you. Okay, Rabbi Mintz will be very proud that we are going to do some Torah learning, but we're going to do it a little bit differently. You see, when Rabbi Mintz is here, his Torah opinion, his Torah thought is extremely decisive, and the directives, what he tells us, that's what goes. Tonight, we have a little bit different. We're going to learn a Torah topic, but we're going to do it in a little bit of a different twist. We're going to explore a topic with two rabbis here, Rabbi Biederman, who you're all very familiar with, Baruch Hashem, and Rabbi Davidowitz. I don't know if anybody ever met Rabbi Davidowitz. Rabbi Davidowitz is one of his special hats that he wears is the camp rabbi. He is the rabbi at the girls' camp at the Zone Girls Division. I think that tells me that somebody has children in the girls' camp here. Okay. The question is as follows. We really try, each in our own way, we try hard to practice as much as we can of Judaism. We keep halacha as much as we possibly can, and we're constantly looking to grow. Now, living in a secular environment, which we're all, in one way or another, we're all amongst either secular Jews or non-Jews. Question then becomes, how do I practice? What is the proper way for me to practice my Judaism when I'm out in the secular world? Say I'm at work, and I'm in a place where in the workplace where there's a lot of non-Jews, and I'm trying very hard, just give as an example, and I'm trying very hard to keep kosher. So when everybody's out in the break room at lunch break, and everybody's ordering from McDonald's, and I'm bringing my tuna sandwich from home, what should I do? Should I come to the break room and sit with everybody else and be proud that I'm Jewish and bring my kosher lunch? Or should I rather just, try to blend in as much as possible? Don't stand out. Just do your thing quietly. My Judaism is between me and God. Rabbi Biederman and Rabbi Davidowitz are going to debate this topic. I think each one of us in different ways, I can imagine at least most of us certainly come across an issue like this in our daily lives. So we're going to hear their thoughts. The process goes as follows. Each rabbi is going to get 2 minutes to open and give their opening thought. And then each one is going to have a chance for a rebuttal. And then it's going to be our turn. We're going to have questions from the crowd. And you'll direct your questions to me, and we'll direct them to the appropriate rabbi. Okay. Anybody care to open? I don't think he wants you to say that out loud. Okay. Fine. We'll let Rabbi Biederman win this part of the debate. And Rabbi Biederman asked that Rabbi Davidowitz should open. So we're going to hear Rabbi Davidowitz's thoughts on this topic.
It's on. Okay. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming out tonight, even though Rabbi Mintz is not here. It's a little bit hot. At least the Warriors game is over, so you don't have to stay home for that. The Yankees are very late. Mets, I don't think anybody's going to wait here for the Mets. I don't know. So the question is, okay, it happens once in a while, So the question is, if let's take the case that Rabbi Forster gave, if they're having a lunch together in the office, and they're bringing McDonald's, and I bring my tuna fish sandwich. So first of all, who said you have to bring tuna fish sandwich? Bring something that's also good, a good steak. Bring something that it doesn't look like a wimpy little nothing, But to sit outside, it's not so nice. To sit in your private office, in your air-conditioned office, not to join the crowd, it's not so nice. Of course, obviously, you're not going to eat what they're serving. But to blend in with everybody is something I think that's expected. You're in an office with people. You're working with people. We're living here in America. To stand out in places, here, for example, here we live in Staten Island. Imagine to stand out with my Jewish beliefs openly in front of everybody who's not so happy with me altogether. They're not so excited about Jewish people in the neighborhood. I don't know about everybody, but a lot of people. And certainly if I'm going to build a sukkah in the middle of the night, hammering away, everybody's trying to sleep, obviously it's something that I should do quietly and privately and nicely and try to mingle with people. If I'm working in an office, to stand out from everybody else, it's not such. It shows that I'm different. It shows that even though I am different and I have to feel proud, but it shows that I'm not part of the group. I'm not part of the program. And we want to be part of the program. We want to be nice to people. We want to be accepting to people. We don't want to show that we're different to people. So I think it's our obligation, as much as possible, to mix in with the crowd, to do what the crowd wants, and not to stand out. And certainly, if they have a small cake and coffee type of, let's say, not kosher cake, I can't come in with a steak sandwich. I can't come in and stand them up and show them up and stand out in their face and make them feel lower and make them feel that I'm different, make them feel that I'm not on the same team as them. I have to blend in as much as possible to be part of the program. This is where I am. I'm working there. I'm living in their country. I'm living in America. America is being very nice to us and letting us practice our religion. I can't stand out and make it difficult for them to take my religion.
Thank you, Rabbi D. There's a world-famous psychiatrist. He's not my doctor. His name is Abraham J Torski. He was actually a practicing rabbi for a number of years. And when he graduated from Marquette University in 1959 in his full Hasidic dress, it was covered by Life magazine. Rabbi Torski was once on a train, and he was approached by a non-observant Jew who began berating him in Yiddish about standing out, about looking like a Jew. And Rabbi Torski, who grew up in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, his father was a Hasidic rabbi, looked at him and in a perfect English said, "I'm sorry, I don't understand you. What language are you speaking?" The guy looks at him, Rabbi Torski goes, "I'm Amish." And the man goes, "Oh, I'm sorry. I'm so proud that you keep your traditions. I'm so proud of how you keep your heritage and how you keep your customs." Upon which Rabbi Torski said to him in perfect Yiddish, "I hope the day comes that you're as proud of your Yiddishkeit, of your Judaism, as you are of the Amish being proud of their heritage." What message are we sending? Forget about the others, but what message are we sending to ourselves? We've discussed it, this has come up numerous times when Rabbi Mintz has given his class, that our actions affect our emotions, our actions affect our mindset, our actions affect the way we are. If we can't be proud of our Judaism, if we're trying to hide, then we are diminishing our Judaism. Then we are not only sending a message that we're embarrassed, not only are we sending a message that we want to hide, not only are we sending a message that we don't want to be really different, but we're changing our mindset, we're changing our emotions, and we're changing our thought process and diminishing our own Judaism when we do that.
I'm not taking sides. I'm not supposed to take sides. I just had an observation. I'm listening to Rabbi Davidowitz. I'm listening to Rabbi Binyamin, and I couldn't help but notice the difference in the beard. That's all. I'm not taking sides. Rabbi Davidovitz is going to have a chance for rebuttal.
It's interesting that the fact that that person made fun of the Jewishness of the man, but not of the Amish, so you see that they look at Jews in a different way. If I'd be a perfect Jew, and I'm walking down the block, and I would be polite to people, and I wouldn't walk on people's lawns, and I would park perfectly, I wouldn't park in someone's driveway just for a minute to get something. If I'd make a good,
Brooklyn.
I know, even in Staten Island, if I'd make a good impression on everybody, then it wouldn't be so bad if I stood out. But if I don't make a perfect impression, there are people are going to look, and sometimes they're right, that I do things that's not becoming of a Jewish person. And therefore, if I stand out, if I worked in an office and everybody loved me and everybody respected me because I love them, and I buy them a present on their holidays, and I'm so pleasant to them, so then they probably would not mind so much. They would probably go out and get me kosher food. But if I'm not so perfect, if I'm not so nice, and a lot of us inside, we don't feel so comfortable being with non-Jewish people, and I show that maybe subconsciously, so they're going to look at me in a very negative way, and then it's much better if I try to blend in. If I was a good Jew, the way I was supposed to be, then you're right, like that Rabbi Torski, he's the perfect person. I imagine he knows how to be careful the way he presents himself, so then he could act like a Jew because no one's going to look bad at him in a bad way. But if I look and I present myself in a negative way, people are going to talk against the Jewish people. It's better that I blend in.
Rabbi Davidovitz, none of us are perfect, not the Jews and not the non-Jews. But if you consider, somebody wrote an article recently about how when guys come home from yeshiva, for intercession, Pesach time and Sukkot time, how the streets are so crowded and they drive like lunatics and everything else, and the stores are full of people and you have to wait long online. All these problems that come up when these yeshiva guys, teenagers and young adults, come home from yeshiva, and all of a sudden they're home and they swarm the streets of Brooklyn especially with their presence. And he goes, yeah, it's this, it's that, it's the other thing. But then he says, look at any college town and compare the crime, compare the misbehavior, compare the level of how these guys act. At our worst imperfection, we're still far above. And if we just act and we aspire to act like good Jews, and I think we should stand out. I think we should be proud of it. I think we could be proud of it. I think we ought to be proud of it. There's a story told. Rabbi Henoch Leibowitz was the Rosh Yeshiva of Yeshiva Chafetz Chaim, a school in Queens, yeshiva in Queens with many, many branches. I think I may have told the story over here once previously. I apologize if I did, and if you heard it, and if you remember it. Chances are nobody remembers it anyway, so it's fine. So they encouraged their students to go out and teach. They encouraged their students to go out and set up yeshivos and teach and be rabbis. And one of their students was working for a major accounting firm. And he came to Rabbi Leibowitz and he said, I really feel discouraged. I really feel down. Most of my classmates are rabbis today. Most of my classmates are teachers. They have rabbinic positions. They're teaching advanced classes of Talmud. And me, I'm working in an accounting firm. It's so discouraging. I really feel like a failure. And Rabbi Leibowitz turned to him and he says, let me ask you a question. When people in your office joke around the water cooler, do they tell off-color jokes? He says, yeah. When they speak among themselves, do they speak properly or do they use obscenities? He says they use obscenities. He says, how about when you walk by? Do they still use obscenities? He says, usually not. When you walk to the water, when you're at the water cooler, are they still making off-color jokes? So the guy says, no, they don't. So he says, just imagine. He says, you're spreading godliness, you're bringing holiness to a place that has none. How much greater is that than someone that's bringing holiness where holiness already is? If we're proud, if we're not in your face, but proud, we walk around like a Jew, we dress like a Jew, we act like a Jew, we let people know that we're a Jew, and we try to act and we try to do the right thing, that'll make a Kiddush Hashem, that'll sanctify God's name, and that's the highest calling of all.
Can I say one statement? One statement like this? just want to say one statement. It's true that not everybody's perfect, but when a non-Jew hurts or beats somebody, it's on page 5 of the newspaper. If a rabbi beats somebody, it's on page 1. Because that's what it is.
Don't beat anybody.
Or don't be the rabbi.
Okay, thank you so much. Two very interesting viewpoints. I'm quite intrigued myself. Okay, my friends, now it's our turn. Questions to either one of the rabbis. Anybody want to volunteer? I think it's easier. Yeah, I'll bring the mic back if we need.
Assimilation. You are not afraid for our children to forget that we are Jewish? And when they assimilate too much, what will happen to our children?
That's what I'll say. That's an excellent question. The question is...
If I can, I'm just going to repeat the question. Some people didn't hear. The question was actually a very, very good question. The question was addressed to Rabbi Davidowitz. If Rabbi Davidowitz is saying that we should blend in, we should keep our Judaism quiet, are we not afraid that our children are going to assimilate because they're going to feel so much part of secular culture that they may end up assimilating into secular culture?
Aren't you afraid, Rabbi Davidowitz, that our children will be so embarrassed of their Judaism that they're going to want to assimilate because you've taught them to be embarrassed?
It's a very, very good question, but a very simple answer. I'm not saying to be embarrassed. You have to feel so proud. And the children should see at home how proud you are and how good you feel, and especially you feel. But they also know that we treat people on the outside with respect. And therefore, we don't go in people's faces, and we don't stand out in front of them. We don't show them that we're different, but of course we're different. And our kids know. We don't go to the same dining places as other people go. We don't dress like them. We don't talk like them. We don't eat. We study differently. We have a different home. And we have to be proud, and we are proud. And we feel proud, and our children will see that pride. But they'll also learn to be respectful in public. That when you go into the public eye, you have to not stand out. You have to, even when you go in the public eye, let's say, for example, you're wearing a kippah. So you're not going to take off the kippah. You wear a kippah. But let's say I live in an area where there's no Jews at all. Let's say my children live in an area where there's no Jews at all. And my child just comes home from school, he's playing ball. He's not so clean, he's not so neat. So what's so bad if he wears the baseball cap? He wears something on his head. He can't not wear anything on his head. When he's walking to shul on Shabbat and he's dressed nicely, that's nice if he wears the kippah. They'll see, wow, look at that. A young man, he's dressed properly, he acts properly, he walks with respect in the street. But if he's not acting, he's not in a place where he could act respectfully. He's playing ball. So if he plays ball like a Jew also, that's excellent. That's wonderful. But if he doesn't, or he's just walking, my children will learn to treat other people with respect, not to stand out, not to put things in their face. But of course at home you'll feel proud. And of course, Hanukkah menorah, you light by the window. Of course you light it by the window. Doesn't mean to hide the Torah that you have to keep, the Torah that you do. We're not going to be embarrassed. We're not going to keep the menorah in the kitchen. We're going to put it by the front window with pride. But to go in front of them in the office, or to walk in the streets in front of them and be different than them, that we try to minimize, so we teach our children to have respect for other people.
Shukayach. Okay. Is there anybody else?
השאלה דווקא אליך. זה שאתה אומר שאנחנו צריכים ללכת and be proud of being Jewish and doing and we are here and we are there. אתה לא פוחד משנאה כלפי היהודים?
Excellent. The question was, if we should be proud and flaunt our Judaism when we're out in the world, are we not afraid that the nations of the world are going to hate us? How much time do you need until I get?
I don't need the mic, actually. I have two answers to that question. One answer is, we live in a culture, we live in a society where everybody asserts their identity. We have the most deviant lifestyles that have pride parades to show that they're proud. Everybody is out there showing who they are. What message are we sending if we don't show who we are? That's one thing. As far as hatred goes, this is an old question. And Germany was the most assimilated country in the world. And that was where Nazism was born. That was the most assimilated country where the Jews were the most integrated into society. They didn't stand out as Jews. They barely considered themselves Jews. And when Hitler came, anybody who had an eighth of Jewish blood in him was carted off to the concentration camps. Where was Nazism born? Where was the paradigm of anti-Semitism, the semel, the highest, the strongest form of anti-Semitism that we know in our time was in Germany. Okay, that was born in a culture where the Jews were most assimilated, where the Jews stood out the least. They hate us not because we stand out. They hate us because of what we represent. Hitler writes in Mein Kampf that we represent conscience, we represent guilt, we represent morals, etc. And that's what bothers them. And that's exactly why they killed us. That's exactly why they hate us. I'm not saying to drive onto their lawns. I'm not saying to drive onto their lawns. What I am saying is be proud that you're a Jew. Don't hide the fact that you're eating kosher. Don't hide the fact that you're walking around with a kippah. Don't wear a baseball cap instead. No, I'm saying, show that you're a Jew. Be proud that you're a Jew. Not just walk around, have your lulav and esrog in your hand when you walk on Sukkot. Don't just put your menorah in your window. When you walk around the Sukkot, don't carry it in a plain paper bag. When you're carrying your talit and tefillin to shul, don't carry it in a shopping bag. Carry it. Let them see that you're a Jew and proud to be a Jew. And that sends a message to them. There's a story they say. I'm going on to another story. I'm sorry. Somebody moved into a very lily-white neighborhood, an assimilated Jew, and he moved into this neighborhood that was all non-Jewish. And came Christmas time, and his son wanted a Christmas tree, just like everybody, all his friends in school. And he discussed it with his wife, and they decided that that was the Chotzet HaGavul. That went beyond what they were ready to do. That they weren't ready to have a Christmas tree in the house, but they had to do some holiday for the kid. So they said, like Rabbi Davidowitz said, they're going to light their little menorah in the window. They'll take the little colored candles and put them in the window. And one night, they put out, the first night of Hanukkah, they went and they put the candle in the window. The next night of Hanukkah, everybody else on the block had their little menorah in the window too, because they were all assimilated Jews trying to act like Goyim.
If I could answer this question also, if you don't mind. The Torah, we know the Torah was given to us on Har Sinai. It's not spelled with a sin, but Sinai, the Gemara says, the Talmud says, because from there Sinah came to the world. Sinai, we got the Torah. There's going to be Sinah, that's true. But the person has to be proud. If I have to carry a talit to shul on Shabbat, so I could leave it in shul before Shabbat, or I can carry it, or I could wear it. So who said I have a right to wear it in public when I don't have to wear it? That's not part of the Torah. The Torah is to wear it by the tefillah, by the prayer. So wear it in the shul. Don't wear it in the street. Right? In other words, to stand out in front of people, that's not our responsibility to do. We have to really blend as much as we could. But to be proud, of course you have to be proud. There's going to be sinner anyway. But to be proud, to teach your children to be proud, and not to be it out in the street. Why won't I wear it outside?
Hang on, somebody was waiting. We'll come to you.
You're talking about in the non-Jewish world how we react with our Christian neighbors, etc., etc. What about our own Jewish neighbors who will kind of like, I guess, belittle you if you don't follow their way of Torah, halakha, etc., etc., etc. If you're not 100% sure of Shabbos, etc. How do we handle situations like that if it's coming in our own group? And just one more point. I was at the parade last week, and it was a group of people protesting against the state of Israel. And I'll say who they were. Okay.
The first question was, well, the only question. The first one was the question, how do we respond? How do we respond? And I've heard this, and I'm sure many of us have. How do we respond when we have our Jewish neighbors complain to us or comment to us about how they judge, is that the right word? How they judge our religious commitment, our religious observance, and how do we respond to them? Before we even get to the non-Jews that we interact with, but to our Jewish neighbors, how do we respond to them when they're judging us about what we're keeping or perhaps not? Who wants to take it?
It's a very, very good question. I have in my class, I have in my 12th grade, he graduated a few days ago. I have a student there who keeps Torah. He wears tzitzit, but his parents don't like it. So he wears tzitzit down to the floor. And he wears it at home also. He wears very long. I said, why do you have to wear it to the floor? The Torah doesn't say you have to wear it to the floor. Wear it neatly. Tuck it all in your pants. Just leave out a little bit if you want. You can't do it imagine you're watching TV on Shabbat in your house, and you go in front of the TV and you block them that they shouldn't see. That's not going to get them to feel good. If you have neighbors who are Jewish people who are not so excited about Judaism, so showing the Judaism in front of them is not going to get them to feel good. You don't scream at them and tell them you have to keep Shabbat and you be nice to them, just the same as non-Jews, the same way. You be proper, you be respectful, and you tell them, you don't do things in front of them to make them feel bad. You don't make them feel bad. Doesn't mean that you get in the car on Shabbat, right? You keep Shabbat, but you invite your children over to your house. You let your children go to the house also if you trust that your children are smart enough not to go against Shabbat and not to eat not kosher food. You let them be friends. You like each other. You have to be careful not to hurt their feelings just as much as non-Jewish people, the same thing.
I think Rabbi D and I are on the same page. And I have to clarify that the people that were demonstrating last week, although I was not there and did not support it, were not demonstrating against the state of Israel. That is a mischaracterization of the event. This is not the venue to go into it.
No, it was answered already. You see that?
For both of you, Rabbi, is it necessary a 3-year-old to wear tzitzit, speaking about the tzitzit, like every day in the school? 3 years old. Because they don't know how to go, like, to use the bathroom. Sometimes the tzitzit, like, goes into the toilet. And how you respond with that?
I think the question is a little bit more of a halacha nature, but the question is for a young child who perhaps is not trained, bathroom training yet, and typically when a boy is 3 years old is when he puts on tzitzit. When a boy is 3 years old, he starts wearing tzitzit. But what do you do if your 3-year-old is not yet trained for the bathroom? Is that appropriate? Is it okay to wait? Should we still put on the tzitzit? At what point? And he's going to school, you said, right? That was the question? He is going to school. At what point should we enforce it?
I happen to think he's going to stand out to his classmates if he doesn't wear them, but I'll let Rabbi D. Since Rabbi Davidowitz is the camp rabbi, we'll let him answer the question.
It's a very good question. If the school demands that he wears tzitzit, so you let him wear it. What could you do? Hopefully he comes home with clean tzitzit. But according to the law, he doesn't have to wear tzitzit if he's not trained yet to not wear diapers. He doesn't have to. It's like you said, it's going to come back dirty. And hopefully the school doesn't force them to wear tzitzit. If they do, so let him have a pair of tzitzit only in the school and wear it for an hour, make them feel happy, put him in his lunch bag and his knapsack, and he'll wear it a little bit to fulfill their requirement, and then he'll take it off. He doesn't have to wear tzitzit. If he's too young to, not trained yet, then he doesn't have to wear tzitzit.
So Rabbi Davidowitz says blend in part of the time. Just sort of a compromise.
This question is to Rabbi Davidowitz. What do you mean blend in? How can me as a Jew, how we stand out like a sore thumb? We are so obviously Jewish, whether yarmulkes, whether it's not eating at the business restaurant, at the business meeting. We just, throughout the day, there's non-stop opportunities that we show how Jewish we are. And to say, like, to blend in, I'm not sure what you mean by that.
If I understand the question correctly, part one of the question was, we all have a Jewish nose. Somehow we just can't hide it. Rabbi Biderman's story about Rabbi Torski, I think it explains that very, very clearly. We stand out wherever we are as much as we try to blend in. So the question was, Could we really blend in? How do we manage to blend in? It's so obvious wherever we go, the people that we interact with will recognize us, even if we don't wear a kippah. Try wearing a cap, doesn't work either. We stand out anyway. How do we manage to blend in? Especially, I think part two of the question, if I understood you correctly, part two was especially because religious practices, there are so many different practices, and it comes up throughout the day. There are so many different things that we're doing. If it's a kippah, tzitzit, or there are every step of throughout the day, there are so many different things that we're doing. We're constantly doing things different that makes us stand out. How do we manage to blend in? At what point do we say, we got to do what we got to do? When we leave early for Shabbat, that's another example.
That's an excellent question. And it's true that we should not blend in by our behavior. People should see that we're Jewish by our fine behavior, by our respect, by our friendliness, by our smile to people. But of course, when it comes to keeping Torah, if I'm invited, I have students who are not religious, and they make a wedding in a non-kosher place. Who said I have to eat there? People say, I'm going to a wedding, I want to eat, so you don't eat. So what? I go, and I make them feel good that I came. And I even dance with the chatan if I could. I dance with them a little. And I don't have to dance with the boys and the girls. I could, if it's boys and girls together, I could stand on the side. I don't have to give a bang on the table and say, stop this. I let them do what they have to do. They'll dance how they want to dance. But I go to the wedding. I show respect. So that's what it means. To blend in means not to stand out and to show, I'm angry that you're having a wedding that's not religious. I'm not coming. Or I'm coming, but I'm protesting. Who are you to protest? Just go and let them have the wedding that they want to have. And be the way you're supposed to be, and don't go against the Torah. If they're having a Christmas party in December in the office, why shouldn't you be there with all the people that you work with? It doesn't mean that you don't have to eat all together. If they respect you and they like you, the boss will probably get you a kosher dinner. I've had it many times. But if he doesn't want to, so go anyway. Don't demand kosher dinner, and don't be angry they're not making kosher for you. It's not made for you. It's made for them. Be with them. Be respectful of them. Be nice to them. Go to the party. Wish everybody well. And that's all. You don't have to be the first one there. And you don't have to be the last one there. Go a little bit that they'll know you're part of the program. That's what it means to be.
Rabbi Davidovitz, are you saying as a rabbi you would go to a wedding that's completely non-halachic and forbidden, that you would attend that wedding and essentially give your imprimatur on that wedding? Is that what you're saying, Rabbi Davidovitz?
I want to tell you a story that I had this past maybe a year ago, last May or June, I think it was. I did a wedding for one of my students, and he didn't tell me, but there was a Reform rabbi who said the last bracha under the chuppah, and she did it very nicely. And she said it with the chazanit and everything. But I went to the wedding, so I didn't do the last wedding. There was no wine. It was not a kosher place. I didn't even realize that there's not even to be kosher wine. It's the first time that I made a wedding on vodka and orange juice. I made a drink. I made a sha'akol instead of buri geffen. But what could you do? So there was a Reform rabbi. So what? What could I do? If I would have known before, okay, I probably still would have gone. This guy's getting married. He wants a rabbi at his wedding. He wants to have a kosher wedding. So at least I made sure it was a kosher. The ketubah was kosher, and the wedding was kosher. So okay, so a Reform rabbi made a bracha also. Okay, why shouldn't I go? Of course it's mixed, and of course there's Jews and non-Jews, but the girl was Jewish, and the boy was Jewish, and they wanted a kosher, so I went to the kosher wedding.
I just want to point out, Rabbi Davidovitz, I just want to point out, how would you respond to the fact that our sages enacted numerous enactments to prevent over-socialization with our, with the society around us?
I'm not sure what that question is. I'm not saying you should socialize with them. I'm saying you should go and do your job. I didn't stay by the wedding and eat for 3 hours. I didn't even look what the food was. I knew it's not kosher. But any time that you have to socialize, if it's your neighbor, the rabbis enact that you shouldn't be friendly with your neighbors. Your neighbors, you have to be nice to, and you have to be friendly to. And sometimes you bring them over a pie. What's the big deal? You can bring them over a hot challah even, if it comes out good. You have to make sure that it's good. Bring them over some good food. Bring them over something nice. Be nice to them. Be friendly to them. There's nothing wrong.
Rabbi Davidovitz, is it not my job?
I think I'm the Reform rabbi here.
No. One quick follow-up question. In this case of the wedding, is it not my job, metaphorically, as the rabbi, if I'm officiating at the wedding, if I would have known in advance that there's going to be a Reform rabbi there, would it then be my job as the officiating rabbi to then tell the chatan or the kallah, whoever you have the relationship with, that that's not appropriate? Or would I tell them, no, blend in and it's okay?
It depends. If the last bracha makes the wedding not a kosher wedding, then maybe you're right. But if it's a kosher wedding, if all you need is the first bracha and he puts the ring on her, after that, the other brachas, you don't need so much. So
Okay.
I have to tell you that I did ask afterwards. I didn't know about the tools later. I asked Rabbi Mintz, what would have done? I happened to meet him a few months later, and he said, what could you do? That's all you could do. So
That's in the case where it
but
was
I didn't
done
ask
already.
before. I didn't know.
We didn't know. And if we would have known about mixed dancing?
I think
At what point do we let it go? At what point do we...
we're getting into
Okay, another question, please.
No, we are still in the same subject. If you think, Rabbi, that everything is, so what's the big deal? Never mind, so make them happy. So you mean you live with them just to make them happy. So if they want you to take your beer, they will feel much better that you will be without beer. So what's the big deal? Take off your beer. So, yeah. So if everything is, what's the big deal? So we can go very, very far. We're gonna forget our Judaism at all.
Look, the beard is a different question, but let's say he was marrying, let's say there was intermarriage. One of them wasn't Jewish. So I couldn't be the rabbi at the wedding. Maybe I'll go, maybe, if I like this. Let's say this student is my friend, this boy is a student, and I think that if I go, he'll feel close to me, and maybe he'll ask me questions later. Maybe I would go. But obviously I would not do the wedding. So if it wasn't a kosher wedding, I couldn't do the wedding. But if it does not make it not kosher, so there's nothing, not so bad. If it's mixed dancing, doesn't make it not a kosher wedding. Maybe I could leave by the mixed dancing if I like. But if I feel close to him, and I want him to feel close to me, so if it doesn't hurt me to be there, it's not so bad if I'll be there a little bit. I don't have to dance. I'll be there. And then I'll leave a little later. He'll know that I came for him. Okay, you can, it's a free country, whatever you like.
Okay, in the limited time that we have left, we're going to open up the floor to any questions on any topic to either one of the rabbis, or maybe both. There's no winners or losers by us. Okay. Okay. But again, any Jewish topic.
This is close to all the conversation what we had here. For example, like we know we're not allowed to take the train and Shabbat. But Marit Ayin, people say, look, the Jew with the beer and rabbi take the train, it's not kosher. The same thing like in the wedding. If you go to the wedding and they see rabbi going to the mixed wedding, it doesn't make like
Comes under Rabbi Davidowitz' supervision.
exactly.
That's the question. Rabbi Foster, you want to...
I'm going to rephrase the question. The question was, there is a concept in Jewish law that we have to be careful sometimes to do something that will look like we're doing something wrong. We don't want people to view us and say, if we're going to do something that looks obvious to the outsider, it may look obvious that I'm doing something wrong, we should avoid that even if by the letter of the law what I'm doing is not wrong. Is that a proper categorization of this law called Maras Ayin, which means what people see, how people perceive us? What is the exact categorization of that law? When does it apply? When does it not apply?
We don't answer halachic questions here, but Rabbi Davidowitz can answer it if he'd like from a hashkafic perspective.
By attending the wedding, I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm not mixed dancing. If I was mixed dancing because I like this chatan and I feel bad for him, so I'm dancing with him and all the other girls, you're right. I can't do that. If I was sitting up by the table and I took a plate of food in front of me and it looks like I'm eating, you're right. How am I eating? It's not a kosher place. But to make a wedding, even though there's mixed dancing, I'm not mixed dancing. A lot of weddings have mixed dancing. They're all kosher. The wedding is kosher. And then most of the time the rabbi leaves. Usually, by all the Sephardic weddings in Brooklyn, the rabbi goes to the wedding, and then after, when it mixes up, he leaves. So sometimes I leave, and sometimes if can get the Chatan alone, I'll stay and I'll make a circle with him of the boys, of the rabbis, if I can. If I can't, so then if there's no purpose to stay, I won't stay. But to say that it doesn't look good, I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm at a wedding. The wedding is kosher, 100%. The food is not kosher, maybe, okay? And the mixed dancing, okay? So they didn't see me dancing. I'm not doing anything that I'm not supposed to be doing. I'm making a kosher wedding. If I wouldn't be there, he'll go to the Reform rabbi to make the whole wedding. At least if I can make it a kosher wedding, so at least it'll be kosher. And also, I'm doing it with the intention that he's my student. He calls me now once a week. Still, the whole year, I talk to him all the time. His wife calls me to ask me questions. I'm a connection to them that maybe they'll start to become a little religious. They'll start to have some kind of Judaism in their life. If I won't go to the wedding altogether, he won't ask any questions. So if I'm doing something wrong, you're right. But I'm just doing the wedding. The wedding is kosher.
I'd like to qualify what Rabbi Davidowitz is saying is not a general halachic or general ruling, and it's based on specific cases that they apply. And I think that has to be made very clear.
In other words, you have to ask. Each case, I also ask. When it comes up, I ask. Okay, so you're right. People see it, so I have to ask. So
You have to weigh the issues, and you have to go to a wiser person and ask the shaila. It's not an across the board heter. It's not an across the board license for everybody to do whatever they want.
אם הרבנים וכל היהודים הדתיים החרדים יהיו רק עם הרבנים והיהודים הדתיים החרדים בלבד, והם לא ייפתחו אלינו, למשל אני לא יהודיה חרדית אבל אני שומרת מסורת ומה שאני, אבל אם הם לא יהיו פתוחים אלינו ולא יהיו בסביבתנו, איך נלמד? אנחנו לא יכולים ללמוד. כשהם באים אלינו ולמסיבות, אפילו אם יש רב רפורמי, מספיק שאני באה ואני אומרת לו, למה אתה לא אוכל מהצלחת? אז הוא אומר לי, כי זה לא כשר. יש פה משהו נכנס, זה לא כשר, מה לא? אז אני רוצה לשאול, אני רוצה ללמוד. ולומדים מכאלה דברים. אבל אם יהיו כולם כל הזמן ביחד בצד, אנחנו לא לומדים. אני, באופן עקרוני, לפי מה שאתם אומרים, אני לא אמורה לשבת פה, אתם דתיים, אני לא יכולה לשבת לידכם ככה, אבל אני פה. ואני לומדת, אני בזכות זה לומדת, ואני מתקרבת יותר, וזה בעצם הרב, שהוא הולך לרב, שיש שם מעורבבים, זה המטרה.
Okay.
Excellent point. Sounds like I don't have to translate much. I just have one.
No, you have to explain it because people are watching online, and I'd like to respond.
Just one classification. I think you sound more Haredi than some Haredim I know. The question was, if the
Right wing.
right wing, I know why you do this. If the right wing rabbis, quote unquote, would always stick together and always be on their own and do their things together, and everybody else who maybe is not as right-wing, maybe somewhere center, right? You said Shomer Masoret, who just, traditional, or perhaps completely secular, or whatever, wherever it is, if they don't fit into that ultra-Orthodox community, if they're constantly segregated, and they're always separate, and then how are they going to learn, right? And this is why I'm sorry, I don't know your name. Ayala. Ayala is saying the way we learn from her perspective as somebody who classifies herself as not Haredi, although I'm not so sure that's true. I think she's more right-wing than she knows. But how are we going to learn if we're not amongst the ultra-Orthodox community?
Okay, I think Rabbi Davidowitz and I might be on different ends of modern Orthodox, of ultra-Orthodoxy, but no, actually we're very good friends, and we very much have this almost the same line. But I think this is a perfect example. We're open, we're here, we're welcoming, we get along with everybody. If you ever came to the zone, I don't know if you've ever been to the zone, for a Chag, for a Shabbat, for anything, you've interacted with a lot of Haredim. Nobody looked down at you. Nobody was nasty to you. Nobody threw rocks at you. Nobody yelled Shabbat. So I think you answered. I think that's the answer to the question. We're open to meeting with people. We cannot lower our standards of what we do. There are things that we can do, and there are things that we can't do. And we have a line. We have a religious line in the sand. Right. So, that could be. But there's a halacha. The halacha is, and Jack touched on this, and we don't discuss practical halacha, but I'm not allowed to walk into a McDonald's. Halacha forbids me to walk into a McDonald's. Halacha forbids me to walk into a McDonald's because of Maritayim. What? Well, even according to most opinions, even just to use the bathroom. Yeah. Public school, absolutely. No. There's a difference. Public school is not going to a non-kosher event. Public school is not lending credence to other streams of Judaism if we don't believe other streams of Judaism exist. Going to a public school is not giving credibility or lending religious credibility to a rabbi who denies the existence, the fundamentals of Judaism. Going to a public school is not walking into a non-kosher restaurant. It's all different. I could explain it to you. I don't know that I can explain it to you in a way that everybody in this room could understand. So if you'd like afterwards, I'd be more than glad to explain it to you. But there's neutral places and there are negative places. And there's a big difference between neutral places and negative places. There are places that we're forbidden to go, and there's places that there is no problem going. There are things that we're permitted to do, and there are things that we're not permitted to do. We have those restrictions. The people, of course you don't know. So that's why we welcome you. That's why we welcome you onto our turf. We of course, we bring you here. Right. But public school is not a negative place. Public school is just a place where we don't want Jewish kids to go to school. Yeah. Rabbi Davidowitz feels it was the right thing to do. That's why he did it. Okay.
Okay, we only have 2 minutes left. Perhaps another question or two.
On any topic.
Oh, I get to make it all the way to the back. Oh, too bad.
First of all, I want to say hello to my daughter. Hi, Brad, love you, miss you. Second, what's your thoughts about, like, never really trusting a guy? Like, are we supposed to never trust a guy? We'll have guy surgeons and dentists and businessmen, but in your gut, are you supposed to always doubt them?
You asking me that question? I think that I speak, Rabbi Davidowitz, I'll let Rabbi Davidowitz speak for himself. He's very articulate. But absolutely not. I disagree with that premise. I couldn't disagree with that premise more. In my cheder, where I went to school, the way I was raised, we have no problem trusting non-Jews. We don't look down at them. We don't look askance at them. We don't distrust them. We don't believe every non-Jew is out to kill us. We don't believe every non-Jew is out to hurt us. We don't believe that. Absolutely not.
Just clarify, but in things that they're not supposed to know, I won't trust them. If they tell me that this food is kosher, they don't know what kosher is. So I don't not trust them. I just don't think they know what they're doing. But of course, if they're a surgeon, a dentist, a psychologist, whatever it's going to be, so that's their perfection, and they're good at it. So of course you trust them. There's nothing wrong.
Beautiful. Next
Thanks
question.
for letting us clarify that. And these two right-wing people. Your question is too expensive? We charge. Okay. Go to the bank.
Oh, I didn't hear the question.
And the back left,
Question
right
about
next to the
kosher food?
tripod. Hello? 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 There's somebody there with a question, not a comment. He doesn't have, he has a question? He has a comment. He's carrying on. Yeah. No, Moshe, you're going to ask the question after he finishes, yeah?
We heard a lot about trusting the goy and not trusting. Many times I see yeshiva bocharim acting in a very unpleasant way when non-Jews are around. And also sometimes you see like disrespect towards goyim or goyish kids. My question is, do the yeshivot really emphasize
the nice behavior, not only towards Jews, but mainly towards non-Jews in public places? Do yeshivot do their job?
I don't know. I'm respectful. I'm a product of the yeshiva system. I think repeat the question.
I don't know.
Repeat the
Just
question.
you guys, for those that may have not heard, the question was, if I sometimes see, I think the question really was a lot of times. I changed it to sometimes. You'll forgive me. I sometimes see people that clearly look Orthodox, ultra-Orthodox, and they stand out. It's clear that they're ultra-Orthodox, and I see them behaving in a negative way, specifically towards secular Jews or non-Jews, in a way that perhaps is really not appropriate. The question was, do the yeshivas that these children attend, do they really stress the importance of proper behavior?
Towards everybody.
Towards everybody, any person.
I can speak for myself. I can speak, I know Rabbi Davidowitz went to the same yeshiva I did. We both, I think, we treat everybody with respect and dignity. I believe all my children treat people with respect and dignity. I believe most of their classmates treat everybody with respect and dignity, both my son and my daughters. I think my sons-in-law treat everybody with respect and dignity. So I have to answer your question that although there are exceptions to the rule, perhaps, or there are exceptions to the rule, because there are always exceptions to the rule, I think that for the most part, our children are taught to treat everybody with respect and dignity. Rabbi D?
Okay, so that's an excellent question. I'm not sure if the schools teach them. I'm not sure. I'm sure the schools don't teach them to act disrespectfully, but parents sometimes don't know how to get their children to be not to socialize with people that they don't want to be socialized. Let's say I don't want my child to do drugs. So I talk against drugs. I talk negatively against drugs. So they see somebody who's on drugs, it could be they'll be disrespectful to him. That's not the way the parents should teach their children. That's not how you get them to be against drugs. They themselves maybe act like that because they want nothing to do with it. But that's not the way you treat people. So kids maybe grow up on their own. It could be some homes also. I don't want my kids to hang around with those kids who are dressed improperly or act improperly. So I drill it into their heads that they're not the right kind of people for me. That's very nice if you do it respectfully, but to do it disrespectfully, it could be that the parents don't know what to do to get this kid not to hang around them. So better than nothing, maybe they teach them. But of course that's not the right way, and the yeshivas, I don't think, teach that they're terrible people. I don't think so. I think hopefully...
So, what Rabbi Davidowitz, if I'm understanding what you're saying that the parents, or possibly the yeshivas, have taught the children to stand out, to be proud, and now they have a hard time blending in.
Let me clarify that. I wanted to amplify on what Rabbi Davidowitz said. If I don't want my kids to do drugs, if I don't want my kids to hang out to be drunks, if I don't want my kids to do other antisocial behaviors, I train them from when they're young that antisocial behavior is unbecoming of them. It's sepasnish, as they say in Yiddish. It's something that's inappropriate behavior for them. It's not for them. It's really, it's a low thing to do. It's an undignified thing to do. It's an improper thing to do. Now, when those kids come out and they see people grow up and they see people doing that, they know, because they've been taught, and they've been taught correctly, that doing drugs is a bad thing. It's an inappropriate behavior. They know that smoking is an inappropriate behavior. They know, and just like that, they know that for a Jew to do something to violate Shabbos is improper. So when they see especially when they're younger children and they haven't quite assimilated everything yet, I'm not talking about when they're young adults, but when they're teenagers or they're younger than that, they haven't quite assimilated how to deal with this. But they know that this person is doing something wrong. So therefore, in their mind, they understand that this person is doing something wrong, and therefore that person is not deserving of their respect. As they get older and they mature, they get a better grasp of the gray areas of life, it changes. But yes, when they're little kids, I have to teach my kids not to do drugs. So when they see a junkie, when they see a guy on a stoop with a bottle in a plain paper bag, right? They're looking down at that person. And you know something? That's right. That's what they should be doing. They should be looking down at that person because that's the way they learn to behave properly.
I just want to add one thing, that some people will say you look down at them, or you could say don't look down at them, but feel sorry for them. Feel bad for them, help them, let's do something to make their life better. But I want my kid not to associate with that kind of behavior. Some people don't know how to do it, so they teach the kids to say, that's disgusting. But, of course, the best way is to teach them to have respect to everybody. Even a drunkard, even a guy who's on drugs, he has a problem. He has something wrong. We have to try to help him, to reach out to him, to be friendly to him, to get him the help that he needs.
Beautiful. Now that we've heard on this topic, we've heard from the two rabbis, with permission from the rabbis. We're going to get to the last question in just a second. I'm just going to weigh in for 30 seconds on this topic.
As a principal.
As a principal, not as a rabbi. So with permission from the rabbis, I'll just give my perspective. I think it's an excellent, excellent point. But I think it goes one step deeper than what the rabbis are saying. What the rabbis are saying is true. But it's not only, this problem happens not only when an ultra-Orthodox child or young adult sees a junkie or somebody that's really that far off. That's true. But it happens, I think that's your question, when it happens even when they see is a junkie. Right. So why does this behavior happen? Excellent. So the question goes back to what you were saying. Why does this kind of behavior happen from the ultra-Orthodox child even when he or she comes into contact with a secular Jew or a non-Jew, of an upstanding person, not necessarily a junkie? And I think the answer is it's a social dynamic. I don't think it has anything to do with the religious thing. The fact is that religious people, just like any other family with any kind of morals and goals, they'll move to a neighborhood of like-minded people, whatever their goals are. Right? Whatever the philosophies are, they stick together, and that happens in every community. So in an ultra-Orthodox community, you have a family living in a neighborhood where there's other families of similar kind, of similar values. So those are the children that this child is growing up with. Not only his own family, his neighbors. He or she is going to a school, a religious school, so the children that they're interacting with are all ultra-religious. So I'm going to use the term his just because I work in a boys' school, so I'm just so used to that. So in this child's mind, his whole life is ultra-Orthodox. From when he wakes up in the morning until he goes to bed at night, that's all he's seeing. In his house, in his neighborhood, in his local grocery store, in the school he goes to, in the shul that his father takes him to on Shabbat. His entire life, he's surrounded by ultra-Orthodox people. Now, in that social environment, he never has a chance to interact with other people from other environments. Now, when he's put into that situation, sure, the schools and the homes do teach it. Yes, I believe the school. I can't tell you every single school does. I would like to believe so. I know in the school where I work, we definitely teach it. And I know the parents' parents teach it in their homes too. They teach it. However, it doesn't become realistic until the child is in that environment. Now, so the child is going, for 10 years the child is in school, and he's hearing over and over from his teachers, from his parents, he's hearing over and over again, we need to respect everybody, even people that are not exactly like us. He understands it intellectually, and he believes in it, and he would like to keep it. But all of a sudden, he's thrown into, like fish in water, fish out of water, I should say. He's thrown into a completely different social dynamic. He doesn't know how to handle it.
Okay, I think that once they get into their older teens, they well outgrow this.
That's true, but it comes
I need to make it clear
yes,
that
happen,
our community is not so insulated that our kids grow up not being able to deal with the
true,
world.
but
There's nothing wrong with sending the kid to yeshiva because people are going to say, I'm not going to send my kid to yeshiva. I want to be able to get along with everybody. So let's get it straight. They all outgrow it.
It's a very simple practice.
Right.
And as soon as they get used to it, it works very, very well. One last question in the back, and then we'll have to end.
Hi, good evening, Rabbi. My question is about the kosher, especially in the holiday. You know, when the holidays comes, they jump the prices for kosher, and like from 10 to 100. And I don't think that's fair. The same food, the same bread, the same bottle of soda, the same sugar, but just because it's a holiday. Where in the halacha say something like this? And also halacha, right? I don't think halacha is to judge people. It comes to on a part because the halacha they judge other people. You don't have to do this. If anybody want to do whatever you want to do, right? Even let's say the religion, they want to follow the halacha. That's okay. and not religion, they don't want to follow the halacha, that's okay for them too. I mean, nobody can say to anybody what to do except God. God wants for everybody, for every nation. And also, I don't think like, when we in, the Catholic, they're talking about Jewish, head the Jewish, and the Muslim, head the Jewish. We don't have to be example, copy him. We have to be example to God. We have, God watching us. God save us from, they said in Hebrew like this, שמרני מחבריי ושמרנה מאויביי.
Excellent. One at a time. Let's see how many we can get to. The first question was, why is kosher food more expensive than non-kosher food, specifically during holidays?
Rabbi Mintz explained this about 5 times already. Rabbi Mintz explained it several times already.
Every holiday?
Okay, Rabbi Mintz explained this several times already. That's why I'm cutting it short. We're going to cut it very short because if the people that were here and heard the answer several times just don't want to hear the answer, they're never going to hear the answer. He's given the answer. It's been explained. The bottom line is, if you go to a specialist, you pay more than if you go to a regular doctor because he had more training and there were more expenses involved. If you go for a more advanced test, you pay more money than if you go for a strep culture. If you go for a CAT scan, it costs more than a strep culture. The bottom line is that kosher food costs a lot more to produce, and kosher food for Pesach costs even more to produce. And that's the answer. And he's explained it several times. You don't have to, just like you said, don't judge people, Moshe, you're judging people. Not only are you judging people, you just judge the rabbis for charging more for kosher food. You judge whoever's charging more for kosher food. We're having a good duel here. Let's go. Let's go for it. You're complaining about people jumping the price for kosher food. Rabbi Mintz explained several times why it costs more. No, he asked other questions. Let him answer. Let's go quickly. No.
Okay, the other question was, why is it fair? You want to answer this? Is it fair for people to judge other people when they feel somebody's doing something that they feel is inappropriate?
Listen, you're right, you don't judge people, but you as a father, you tell your daughter where to go and where not to go. You're not going to let your daughter do whatever she wants. No, you're saying that nobody could tell anybody what to do. You tell somebody that you care about, you tell. Somebody that you love, you tell, don't go to a place that's dangerous. Okay, but God gave your daughter. But I want to ask you, I don't know if I should ask you that, but somebody who has a child, and the child is going to a party that everybody's doing drugs there. You have a right as a father to tell you, I don't know how to tell them not to go, but that's your responsibility to tell them. That's your love. You love your child. You tell your child not to go to certain places. They're going to go into a car, and the driver is drunk. You're not going to say anything? It's Tachas Hashkachas Hashem. Let God take care of it. No, you're not going to do that. You're going to say to your child, look at him. He doesn't have his eyes dilated. He drank something. I don't want you to go in the car. You love your daughter. You're going to tell her. If you love your neighbor, you're going to tell your neighbor also. It doesn't mean you have to force them. It doesn't mean you tell them what to do. But if you care about them, you'll somehow try to do the right thing, that they should do the right thing. You'll be nice to them. You'll invite them for dinner. You'll be friendly to them. And little by little, they'll get to like you. And then you're not going to tell them, don't do this, but you're going to try to get them to want to be like you. You're going to try to get them to do your lifestyle, but it's safer. You're going to tell your children, you're going to tell your neighbor, anybody that you love, you're going to tell. If you just scream at them, it's not going to work. But you're going to hope. Certainly you have to pray. You have to pray for them. God, please help them. Please show them the light. Make them see the right thing. And anything that you could do to get them the right thing, you'll do also. If you love them, you'll do the same thing.
And we know what God told us. And we know what God told us to do. You admit that God gave us rules. So God gave us rules. So what Rabbi Davidovitz is saying is that trying to inspire somebody, trying to get somebody to do God's rules that he gave us, there's nothing wrong with that. Because that's a sign of love. If I don't care about you, then I'll let you do whatever you want.
Comments we'll do privately. Thank you so much, everybody. I know it's a hot evening. Thank you so much for coming. Rabbi Mintz certainly will be proud of the Torah that we learned here, even when he wasn't here. Thank you so much. Good evening.